In terms of York's own position in the market, we have maintained a consistent market share over the last 12 months. Although we saw that the industry volume there's a slightly downturn. Before York looks at the lumber price index and benchmark ourselves against our peers form, and York over the last 6 months started to act as a price former as well in the market, as being the biggest player in the sector. Our philosophy in the company is to be cost competitive. Is one look at the sector and divide it up into processing plants in South Africa. It's quite critical to know that there are about 108 sawmillers operating in this environment versus only about 16 pulp and paper and board mill plants. And that just gives you an indication how competitive the market is in which we operate, with a market share of that 22-23%. The biggest other players is all the small players with a combined market share of over 40%. In that environment, it's quite critical that York differentiate itself in order to remain competitive against these players in terms of minimum wages rate paid, in terms of Occupational Health and Safety Acts. All of these things which you as a big company has to comply with, and some of our competitors don't always, subscribe to the same level of standard. So in that regard, one of the key elements for York and our success has been that we'll be able to manage our cost structures down in terms of being quite competitive, in terms of to be really relevant in the marketplace. The other side of the business, just going forward, is also we have introduced a concept which we referred in terms of value margin, which is a contribution calculation in terms of the product mix you produce, what you derive from your raw material, what the market demands are. And if you can't match these products up, you will end up in the wrong cycle of the business where you produce products, of course, that you can't sell. York has been, apart from the cost side, we've been quite successful in addressing that value margin equation towards the raw material that we purchase from outside parties. And that's where we saw the huge turnaround in our processing segment over the last 6 months. We expect that to continue going forward, and we hope that government really delivers on these things and these key drivers that I just mentioned earlier. If these things would happen, the key fundamentals are there that York will come back to that 74% net building plans in the pipeline, and which will be good for the whole construction and sector as a whole.